Hello everybody and welcome back for the Thursday update video. It's not the nicest day out here today, and honestly it kind of already starts to feel like fall is starting to set in. I hope that's not the case. I still got a lot of tomatoes and peppers and stuff that I want to ripen up, but the weather is weird, so who knows, the season might be winding down. Just in case that is actually the case, I want to get a jump start on a few of the things that I was going to try and root so that I can have, well, more of them growing in the future. Today in particular, we're going to be focusing on the rosemary and the sage that I was talking about the other day, because as I have mentioned, I mean, sure, I can grow those from seeds. I have grown these from seeds, but it's a ridiculously long, painfully slow process. So since that gentleman was kind enough to donate a container of the rooting powder, I'm going to give it a go with these herbs, bring you along today, show you how I'm doing it, and hopefully this will work. Never know until you try. So much like the houseplants, I'm going to try and do 18 of each of these. Not necessarily 18 of these, because there is a Tricolor Sage in the kitchen that I want to try and get some from as well. I should be able to get 18 decent looking cuttings off of this rosemary, as much as it's going to hurt me when that's done. Yeah, I don't know. We're just going to have to see how the numbers work out. But the goal is 36 new plants, 18 rosemary, 18 of the two different types of sage. Alright, well, hard to believe, but this handful of plants contains 18 give or take rosemary cuttings, and I think I've got 14 sage cuttings in here. Hopefully going to get a couple from that tricolor like I said. Alright, into the basement, where the weather is a little cooler, but more reliable. Alright, took me a couple minutes to find the tripod there, but should make this a lot easier. Before we get started, I thought I'd show you the soil mix I'm planning on using for this. Yes, this is reclaimed soil, and you can tell that, because if you see perlite on my channel, it's reclaimed soil. And there's an awful lot of perlite in this. That's exactly what I was looking for, because I want these to be able to breathe, as I understand it. So we'll spin the camera just off to the side. My heat mat is all set up. I've been pre-soaking the trays. I just had to turn that one. It's a slight angle to my table here, so I'm going to have to fix that one of these days too. But that'll soak up shortly, be nice and moist like everything else. And we'll bring it over here. So for this project, and for the record, I'm going to be using Miracle Grow Fast Root, not because it's sponsored or anything, but because it was sent to me by a kind viewer. So, got all of my rosemary cuttings here, most of my rosemary cuttings here. I managed to get 4 cuttings from that Tricolor Sage. Some of you older viewers who have been around for a while may remember this from my Penticton aquaponic setup. It looked beautiful in the wintertime. As things got colder, those purples come out. You can't really see them now, but trust me, it gets cold around here, they will come out. And we have a huge mess of just traditional sage cuttings here. I'm going to show you really quickly what I'm going to do with each of these, and then do the most of that off camera. And that is, I'm just going to strip off the bottom leaves, leaving, well, just a little bit of greenery at the top here. I'm actually going to clip them off. A little bit cleaner that way. And then all of my sages are going to be worked down to about this point. It's going to go pretty much the same way for these, well, not that rosemary, I'll get that in a second. Pretty much the same way for these rosemary, although they're much easier to just peel off the needles, so I won't need the clippers for that. Maybe I should use the clippers. This is why I brought extras. So this is much safer on the rosemary with the clippers. I'm just going to be mixing my herb cuttings for now into this side box. I'll separate them upstairs when I dry them out, because you know I'm going to be saving sage like that. Just need to find myself a turkey. I have been really craving turkey lately. Anyway, I'm going to take care of the rest of these cuttings and we'll get back to it. So here are all the leaves and needles that I clipped off of those cuttings. Definitely going to take these upstairs to dry. Let's see, under a better light perhaps. Quite a pile. Curious to see what the weight turns out to be on that. We'll put that aside for now. And here we can see our piles of herbs look a whole lot smaller there, don't they? I don't think it's showing up very well on the camera, but here is a look at how fine that powder is. And we're going to get started with the Tricolor Sage, simply because we have been waiting a few years to get our hands back on this. So, just going to take the stem, dip it lightly in the powder, tap off any excess, plunk it into the soil, and in theory that should help it produce more roots faster and become a nice, happy, healthy plant. I didn't try this with the houseplant cuttings because I already know that those particular plants are usually pretty happy to root as it is. So I figured, why waste this product? I'm going to carry on like that for all of the rest of my sages. And the rosemaries as well. I'll show you here. It's going into a different planter, so you'll miss that bit. But again, just going to dunk it into the powder, shake off the excess. And you'll see that one in a second when we get to the rosemary tray. So I'm just about finished this tray of sage. The whole process has taken me, well, I should say the planting process has taken me probably about a minute with the camera off. Really not a lot of time involved in this part of it. Bit of a tip though, if you're going to be stripping the needles off of rosemary clippings, as nice as it is to use the scissors for the plant and such, I recommend just pinching them off with your thumbnail. In the end, that's what I ended up doing. Got it done quite quickly. So, almost finished with these sage cuttings. Two more. One more. Put that on there. And done. And I'll carry on in the exact same fashion here with these rosemary. We can see two cells here that aren't fully moist yet. I'll make sure they go where the water is remaining in the warming tray. No, I'm not expecting all of these to root, as I may or may not have already said. I mean, sage is a tricky one. Rosemary is a tricky one. That's why I'm resorting to the powder. I figure if it can help, please let it do so. It's also why I'm doing so many of these, because I don't necessarily need another 18 rosemary plants. I'm not going to object, you know, but I don't need it. So, kind of expecting a certain number of them to die off, and hoping that I plant enough extras to still keep myself happy, you know. Alright, we'll get back to it in a second. And that's the rosemary tray finished. So, I'll spin back over here. Awkward. It's an old tripod. It's an old camera. What do you do? And put those nicely in the middle. I think maybe a little bit more water in this tray wouldn't hurt. Now the trick is to find a cup around here that doesn't have holes. And of course to try not to scoop a goldfish into this, because they really don't care about other stuff entering the tank. Not concerned about it at all. Okay, we'll put a lid on this. And in theory that's about as good as I can do for this. So, I'll just show you really quickly the last batch of clones that I took off. The astrid peperomias on the right, standard spider plants on the left. In front of them here we've got the 3 surviving peppers, bad brains, ahi Guyana, and well, it claims to be a reaper, but it's surviving, so I question that. And one thing of interest down in the dungeon, the pitcher has opened on the pitcher plant. Well, the largest of the pitchers. There are a few forming on here. So I'm hoping that aphids are attracted to this thing, and this thing is attracted to aphids, and that is a relationship that helps solve some of my problems, you know? Would be nice. Would be nice. Such an interesting looking thing. A steam lid. Kind of like a Pac-Man, just cut it off at the bottom there. I don't really want to handle that too much though, so sorry little plant. And I think that's probably a wrap from down here in the dungeon. There's really not much more I can do for those cuttings, but wait and hope, which, you know, is what I do most of here in the garden. For those of you who are enjoying these daily type videos, you may be interested to know that I am going to attempt to go live 5-ish my time tomorrow. And yeah, I'm going to give those radish pods a bit of a taste, and then of course babble like I do. So it seemed to be a pretty good turnout for that other random live appearance. I figure maybe if I give you guys some warning, might even be better. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody.